What's going on, guys? My name is Armored Rose. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, as always. And Christmas season is right around the corner, so I decided let's go ahead and discuss what are some of the best portable systems that you can get somebody in 2023 going into 2024. So basically, this is going to be a tier list. I have this structured here. Don't mind the fucking ads. Probably should have had an ad blocker for this video. But basically, right, I'm going to be discussing these systems. Which one do I think that are the best systems ever? Which ones are a pretty good idea? Others that are just dog shit. Some I don't even have on this list. I didn't feel like putting them on the list myself. But yeah, so let's discuss the categories. First one we have is best gift ever. That's going to be the top of the top. That is going to be the best systems, in my opinion, that you can get somebody, right? After that, we have the best bang for buck. What is the best gift that you can get somebody without breaking the bank? Shit's really expensive right now, and plain and simple, spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a video game system may not be an ideal situation for some. So that's why I have this category here. Next is great gifts. These are basically pretty good gift ideas for people. Not as good as like best gift ever or best bang for buck. They don't qualify for bang for buck, but they are pretty solid gifts. Then I have good idea. Basically, it's a good gift idea, but you're better off picking something else. And then under that, I have should have picked something else. Like, you definitely should have picked something else. And the last one is you'll get beat up. If you give somebody this, why? Like, unless it's like your mortal enemy. Although some of these I don't even know if I would give my worst enemy. But anyways, let's jump into this with our first system. In my opinion, a system that is going to be very, very common. And a system that people are still definitely going to buy this year, and that is the Nintendo Switch. I wanted to cover this thing first because of the fact this is going to be probably one of the most common gift ideas. And I'm going to be straight with you guys here on this ranking here. I like the Nintendo Switch, but I'm putting it in good idea category, and here's why. First things first, these are very, very common. I would definitely go used buying one of these, but if you're talking to a gamer wanting to get this for a gamer, they may have already played this system, if not owned it already, right? And plain and simple, I think there are much better options than the Nintendo Switch that you can go for. I like the Switch. I really do. I think it's a solid system, but because of how bad Nintendo has handled the Switch recently, I can't recommend it over other options I have in front of me and on this list. For starters, Switch Online. Horrible. I fucking hate Switch Online. I don't care if you get a whole bunch of retro games. I could play a bunch of fucking retro games for nothing on these other systems, right? Plain and simple, Switch Online is terrible. And the money you pay for it, in my opinion, you're basically just paying for a shitty, glorified emulator, right? And the online functionality is garbage. Not to mention the price of games. Breath of the Wild is still $60. Let that sink in. A game that came out when this system released, not this specific one, the original Switch, is still $60. To me, that's crazy. You spend a lot more money in the long run. If you're getting this for a kid, this may not be a bad idea, but if you're getting it for like an adult, and especially someone who's a bit more of a hardcore gamer, I would look at other options for damn sure. Good system, but I can't recommend it over any of the other ones that I have in front of me here. Okay, next system I have on the list. The Game Boy Advance. Yes, this is an amazing system. I love this thing to death. However, there are other options that have it beat in a decent amount of ways. First things first. I didn't discuss pricing with the Switch because it's still a current system. This is used, right? These get crazy expensive, right? The one that I have here is $70 that is on this website. The one I have, I got this a while ago at like a thrift store. So for me, it wasn't that much when I bought this. But again, when I got this was years and years ago. But as you can see here, especially if you want one like with the Game Boy Advance SP with the backlit screen, they can be fairly pricey, and there are just better options, in my opinion, if you want to play Game Boy Advance games. But this system is still phenomenal if you just want an original Game Boy Advance system. It really is a good system, and I love it, but just because of how expensive it is, I can't put it higher than anything than great gift idea. I really like this system, but plain and simple, the amount of money that you're spending for one of these currently just isn't worth it compared to some of these other systems. But if you bought this for somebody, I can guarantee that they would love this. If someone bought me a Game Boy Advance for Christmas, right, I would definitely not have a problem with that. Granted, obviously there are better systems here on this list that I would much rather prefer. Maybe not much rather prefer, but I would prefer over the Game Boy Advance. But this is still a great system, and overall, I mean, games are still fairly cheap for this thing. It's just the actual system itself that costs a decent bit of money to get into. So, if you do need a Game Boy, and you want to play the games natively, you don't really want to worry about emulation or anything of the sort, this is a good idea. But overall, there are better options, in my opinion, that are on this list. Alright, now let's cover the system that, in my opinion, is automatically, I'm not even going to say what the system is, I'm just going to move it. The Nintendo DS. This system here, I'm sorry, whoops. This system here is the best bang for buck system, period, right? Because these are kind of in a weird state where they're not as old as the Game Boy Advance, but they're still very much common. I mean, this was the most sold handheld, I think. I don't know if the Switch is beating the DS in sales. This is the most sold handheld of all time. As such, it's very common for one of these. But I recommend this over the Game Boy Advance because if you want to play GBA games, you have the GBA slot down here. And you can also play DS games. Not to mention, this is where we start getting into modding as a serious option. Yes, you can mod the Game Boy Advance, but the problem is with modding the Game Boy Advance is, one, you're probably just going to mod it for an LCD screen, and two, even if you wanted to load ROMs and shit onto it, at that point you kind of get a little bit more difficult and more tricky things. I'm sure there are easier ways to do it than what I've seen, but plain and simple, I would just recommend getting a DS. One, R4 cards are fairly easy to use. They're still very much common. And, again, you can play the entire DS library on here, which is a phenomenal library that I recommend. It is one of the best libraries on any game system. And price point-wise, this system's absolutely incredible. I literally saw this here for $40. And this isn't uncommon either. You can find original DS Lites for around $50 to $60. But this is incredible. Like, seriously. This system does it all, right? And it's absolutely incredible, right, what you can do with this system. I absolutely love the DS and everything. So it is getting bang for buck, and it is definitely going to stay at the top of bang for buck, ladies and gentlemen. Let's make this perfectly clear. But plain and simple, yes, this system is phenomenal. I would absolutely get this if you're someone that doesn't want to spend the money on the 3DS, which we'll cover the 3DS here in a minute. But plain and simple, this is a phenomenal idea. Even if you're getting this for a kid, I still think in 2023 that a system that came out this long ago is still a phenomenal system to get a child. Because here's the thing, right? It's cheap. They're still cheap. And again, the game library, this shit was made for kids, right? Of all ages. You have games that are of all ages, but again, this is a phenomenal system for kids. Amazing. I grew up on one of these. Absolutely incredible. I cannot recommend the DS enough. Now, I like the DS. I think the DS is a phenomenal option. However, let's cover its rival, the PlayStation Portable. Oh, man. This is where modding starts to get serious, ladies and gentlemen. This system, in my opinion, is the best barrier to entry system that you can get for modding, especially because you can find these for usually cheaper than the 3DS, but your mileage may vary depending on where you look at, where you live. the 3DS is a phenomenal system for modding. I genuinely think that's where modding starts to get really, really good. But this is also a really good barrier to entry for modding. But even if you don't care about modding, ton of PlayStation Portable games, great library. You know, the UMD discs, in my opinion, are a pretty bad format. Not only that, but it also uses a proprietary card. But still, this is a phenomenal option. But again, because of the fact that this uses a proprietary card, not to mention the UMD drives just suck ass on this thing. I don't think that there's any other light way to put this. I am going to put this above. Well, because it is a phenomenal system, though. Fuck it, we're putting in best gift ever. This system is phenomenal, and well, actually, we can do bang for buck. We'll put it in bang for buck, because of the fact that PSPs are fairly cheap. You can get this one here, like the one I found was a white PSP 1000 system with a 64 gigabyte memory card. The one I have is a 32, but you can still find these for actually fairly cheap. What's also nice is these also have micro SD card adapters. So if you don't want to get the proprietary card, just get the fucking adapter. Yeah, I have to put this in bang for buck because you can get this for under $100. And this isn't the only one, obviously. It's just the one that I chose to pull up for this playlist. But I've seen PSPs go for $50-$60. And that's a steal. I have to put this in bang for buck. I don't want to put it in great gift because, in my opinion, it's not as expensive as the Game Boy Advances get. And plus, you can play a lot more on this and do a lot more with this than you can the Game Boy Advance. And you're just getting a lot more for it. So I'm going to put this in bang for buck for damn sure. Phenomenal system. All right, ladies and gentlemen. This is where it gets good. It hasn't gotten good already. This is the best system, in my opinion, out of the mainstream companies, I guess. The Nintendo 3DS or like the 2DS, for example. I'm just lumping these together. What else is there to really say about this system other than this is it? This is where it's at. First off, micro SD card support. Already phenomenal. All these other options don't have micro SD card support besides the DSi, but all 3DSs have micro SD card support. It makes modding so much easier. Oh my gosh, so much easier. Overall, this system is phenomenal. You can play the entire DS library on here. The entire GBA library. Here's the thing about the 3DS that, like, a lot of people don't realize. This can run GBA games technically natively. Granted, yeah, you can't physically put a GBA game in here, but you can run them off the SD card, and it runs them off of the system natively. They use the same architecture that the DS and the Game Boy Advance does. And that's just Nintendo basically saying, hey, let's not change our architecture. But in this case, I think it's a very, very, very positive thing. You can run a whole bunch of classic games on here, even if you aren't into modding. I don't know. No, the eShop was discontinued, so I don't think you can get access to some of these games anymore. But plain and simple, this does it all. And it is a phenomenal device for everything. 3DS games, DS games, GBA games, SNES games, NES games. This really does it all, and for the amount that you're getting for how much you spend on these is incredible. If you get the 2DS, about $100. I've seen the originals go for like $80. I would put it in bang for buck, but I can't put it anything, in my opinion, below best gift idea ever. This truly is a phenomenal system. This will play. It'll play a ton of games, and it is, in my opinion, has a much bigger library. I mean, it's not an opinion, it's a fact. It has a bigger library than the DS and Game Boy because it has those libraries and its own. And modding this, there's so many things you can do with modding this system. It truly is phenomenal. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about a device that I think is still very underrated. Not quite the best, right? I don't think this is better than the 3DS. I'm just going to be upfront with you. I have my reasons for it, which I'll go into here in a second. But we have the PlayStation Vita. Phenomenal system. Great system. I love it. One major flaw. This system would genuinely be the best. If this flaw didn't, in my opinion, take it down to where it just isn't, right? And for me, at least, if I can get this fucking thing open here. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. This tiny bastard. No, this is not a micro SD card. This is Sony's own proprietary card. And the difference between this and the PSP, I can't get an SD card adapter for this. I have to purchase this used. And the one I have is 8 gigabytes that came with it. 8 gigabytes. That's not enough. Nowhere near enough for this system at all. Especially because of how expensive this system is nowadays. I love the PS Vita. I think that this is a phenomenal system. It is very convenient. I mean, the form factor is... I mean, where the fuck is my phone? Literally, it is the same form factor as my phone. It is very, very convenient. You know, I could put this literally pocket to pocket. Like, here. I can just put this in my fucking pocket with my phone and my keys and shit like that and forget about it. I love the form factor of this thing. But here's the problem, is the price and the fact that, again, it runs off of its own proprietary memory card. That, to me, in my opinion, I hate to put this system lower than anything besides best gift ever, but I have to put it below the Game Boy Advance for me, and great gift. For me, at least, this is still a great option, but because of how expensive these things can be, I mean, look at this, right? You find these for $140. If you want to do storage capacity, they get even more expensive. I don't know why the fuck it's not doing it there. But whatever, right? Basically, these things only go up to 64 gigs. When my 3DS here, I can go up to... I mean, relatively, you're going to want to only go up to 64. But I can put whatever fucking size SD card in here I want. Let me see which one I actually have in mind. I think I have like a 64 gig in here. No, I do not have. I have a 256 gigabyte. I don't even know if the system can take advantage of that storage. For some reason, I have a 256 in here. If I could put that in the PS Vita would be alongside the 3DS. But for me, it just isn't there because, again, this is more expensive. And because of the fact that you're probably going to need to buy one of these memory cards anyways, it starts to get to a point of, really, the 3DS is just such a better option to go with. I love the PS Vita, I do. But for me, I just can't put it above the Game Boy Advance or the PSP. The PSP still is king from Sony. I mean, again, I can get an SD card adapter and play a shit ton of games. Yes, I can't play the same games I can on here, but I still get a good experience with this. And it's significantly cheaper. So, overall, I mean, I really, really like it, but I just can't. I'm sorry, I just cannot put it above the GBA. For me, I love the GBA too much, and again, because of price point and because of the fact of the SD card being proprietary, I just can't put it above anything else. Okay, let's cover. We'll cover the worst option that I think you can get somebody, and then we're going to cover the best, the absolute best option that beats all of these systems, right? That not only beats all of these systems, I mind you. Oh, where the fuck's my Switch? That beats all of these, but can play all of these, right? And for some of you, this may not be a shocker, but we'll get into that. So, let's discuss the worst option. In fact, I don't even have it on this tier list. Let's just change the bottom here. Tier list here to Playdate. All right, let's just change it here. Now, I'm sure this has a market. Okay. But why? If this was $40, I would recommend this. This is $200 fucking dollars for its own proprietary thing, right? The cover is $30 fucking dollars. I could probably get a DS for that. That's crazy. If someone bought me a Playdate system, first off, that sounds fucking horrendous. Like, I got you a Playdate. Like, what the fuck? Like, that sounds horrendous. But for $200, I can get a Vita. I said that this option was expensive. It is expensive, but I can get a Vita and a memory card for that price. Hell, maybe even less depending on where I look. I could get a Nintendo Switch Lite used. I'm selling my Switch Lite used for cheaper than this. I could get the 3DS. Regardless, this is absolutely, in my opinion, the worst option you can get. It's cool. It has a crank. Whatever. All right, like, these are literally all games that are just uploaded by people who want to play games on the Playdate. There are no titles that entice me to that system whatsoever. Oh, cool, you can use the crank. If I just want to move something, I'll fucking move the analog stick. Like, it doesn't, I don't think it matters that much. But regardless, the Playdate is just, don't get this for somebody. Please don't. Also, you forgot an honorable mention I wanted to mention here is these. These are the Retroid. This is the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. These are basically retro emulators. These are dedicated portable handhelds. I love these things, but quality definitely varies. There are way too many. And overall, I think that, yeah, these are good, but if you're paying $150, or I've seen these on sale for $150. If you're paying like $170 for these, I would save up a little bit more money and go for my number one option, especially if you're planning on getting something like the Odin, which is already $300 to begin with, and does emulation as good, if not better, in my opinion, than even the dedicated systems. And ladies and gentlemen, let's reveal our number one option. Now, it is our most expensive option. Is it going to be the option I recommend? We'll see at the end of this. But this is our number one option. And this should be no surprise to you. If you either own one of these systems or if you've watched my channel, I'm actually working on a video on one of these. And it also happens to be not only the most expensive, but literally the biggest system I own. The Valve Steam Deck. This is the reigning champion, in my opinion, of portable handhelds in 2023 going into 2024. This does it all. This does it all. It is the most expensive. I'm not going to lie. This is pricey, all right? But it is absolutely worth it for what you're getting here. I've had my Steam Deck for a little over a year, and I can confidently say this is my favorite handheld system I own. If you want to say, oh, well, it's technically a computer, that's here or there. In that case, it would be the 3DS is my favorite dedicated handheld system. But plain and simple, this does everything that I wanted to. It plays literally all the other systems on this list. Everything. Everything here, by the way, this can play. This could play 360 games and PS3 games. I have Skate 3 on this fucking thing. That's insane. You can play Switch titles on here. And you can do it well. I can play Nintendo Switch games on here. If you're wanting to get a Switch OLED or a Steam Deck, just go with the fucking Steam Deck. Alright, like, plain and simple. You can play Switch games on your Steam Deck. Who cares? Alright, like, Nintendo already has a stick up their ass to begin with. Alright? But regardless, not to mention the Steam Deck is cheaper than ever. Right? They just had the OLED models that came out, which are pretty nice, I will say. Now, yes, the ROG Ally does exist, especially if you want to get towards the higher end. But plain and simple, for $399 for the 256GB LCD, which is also bullshit, by the way, I have the 64 gig. An NVMe SD, that's bullshit. But plain and simple, they are selling the older models, right? So if you do want to get the 512 gigabyte LCD, it's $450 instead of the $550, right? Which I think is actually pretty solid. And then the one I have, this is the model I currently have, is $350. The same exact price as a Switch, as a Nintendo Switch OLED, right? Boom. If you want the Nintendo Switch OLED, right, it is the same price as the 64 gigabyte version of the Steam Deck. Now, granted, these are while supplies last. They just have a finite amount of these. But this is still an amazing system. For the same price, there is literally no question. I could have seen if someone maybe wanted to get a Switch OLED, if they weren't really wanting to spend that extra $50. There's no reason for it now. The Switch OLED is nowhere near worth getting compared to the Steam Deck. And even then, I still think the Steam Deck is far better than the Switch OLED and the Switch in general, because you can play Vita games, 3DS games, and actually the DS and 3DS games, because of the size of the touchscreen, work surprisingly well. That was like the biggest shock to me. Game Boy Advance games. I already have the fucking 3DS. PSP games, DS games, and Nintendo Switch games. All of these can be played on this one system. And for me, this is a no-brainer. There's so much I can do with this system. It is absolutely incredible. So where am I putting it on the tier list? You already know. It is the best gift idea I think you can get somebody for a portable handheld in 2023. This is, in my opinion, the best option. And there's nothing else that comes close to this, in my opinion, especially for $350. If you can get your hands on a Steam Deck for $350, this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. Dude, you can play Elden Ring on this fucking thing. I've absolutely played my fair share of Elden Ring on this. You can play current video games on this. Yes, it's big. I will give it, that's the biggest downside I have with that, literally, is this is huge. This system is, I mean, look at my fucking head. Like, look how big this is compared to my head. It is absolutely crazy. Shit, I didn't mean to knock my mic. It's crazy, right? You can fit, like, most of these systems in here, right? Like, it's insane. It's crazy. But I'm willing to compromise the size on this thing because of what this can do. It comes with a case, too, which is also nice to carry shit around in. But I also would recommend probably either putting this in a bag or getting a dedicated carrying case, a third-party one, because it does make it a little bit easier. I find that the case that it comes with isn't all that great. But plain and simple, son of a bitch, plain and simple, this is the best system I think you can get in 2023. Now, I have to discuss, though, what is the best overall option. Which one out of all of these am I picking? And ladies and gentlemen, it's the DS. I have to pick this. If we're just discussing the best overall value, there is nothing quite like the DS that's on the market. Yeah, I love the Steam Deck. It is the best. I'm picking this after recording this video. I'm probably going to just play more of the Steam Deck anyway. But plain and simple, if you want to get somebody a cheap video game system without breaking the bank, you want to have a ton of games, from GBA games to DS games, honestly, I think getting somebody a DS in 2023 going into 2024 is a phenomenal idea. And not to mention, these are going to go up in price. These are a great collector's item to have. I love the GBA, but it's starting to get expensive. And right now, this is a great item to have, and this is going to get more expensive. If you buy one of these, it's going to appreciate in value, which is awesome. Same thing can be said with the 3DS. I do like the 3DS. I do prefer the 3DS to the DS. But the price gap, the DS, in my opinion, is still the best value. But if we're just talking best overall system, it's the Steam Deck, right? If we're talking best value, it's the DS. But if we're discussing which one out of all of these am I just going to recommend, it's the 3DS. This plays DS games, GBA games, SNES games, NES games. Massive catalog of library, and again, like the DS, this will appreciate, just it'll be a little bit more time, I guess. But plain and simple, both of these are phenomenal options, and obviously, if you can go with this absolute behemoth, go with the Steam Deck. It's just, if you are willing to spend the money on this, I promise you it'll be worth it. I also have a 256 gigabyte in here as well. The fact that I have a 256 gigabyte in here, can we talk about this before I end the video? I have the same amount of space in my fucking 3DS as I do my Steam Deck. That's absurd. But anyways, that's going to wrap up this long video. Hopefully I can make a couple update videos here within the next couple weeks. If you did like this video, as I said, hit that subscribe button down below. And let me know in the comments, which one would you prefer out of these? Maybe I didn't cover any of the options that you might have wanted. Maybe you're somebody that says that the Playdate is a good option. And in that case, get out. Anyways, but I'll see you guys on the next video. My name is Armored Rose. I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace out. Whew, we're finally done. This video took way too long to record.